Welcome and good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Thornstone, and I am the President and CEO at the Ontario Media Development Corporation. I want to welcome you here this evening. This is actually our fourth annual research showcase with a few more fascinating projects to present to you tonight, and we're hoping, that you will go home having gained a few useful insights about what some of Ontario's cultural industries are doing to address the various issues and challenges that they're facing in their respective sectors, and that you might be able to learn from those ideas in your areas. I don't think I probably need to tell anyone in this room that good research is really essential to the success of any business, but it's certainly a critical component to ensuring the continuing competitiveness of Ontario's creative industries on the world stage. And part of OMDC's mandate is to act as a catalyst for research and development in Ontario's creative industries, but also to facilitate collaboration across sectors. And it's certainly our hope that this evening will help to accomplish both of those things for you. You're going to hear some teasers tonight about studies that are either completed or are underway now on topics like how we engage audiences and make content discoverable in an online world, how gap analysis can help us curate programs to specifically try to drive growth in our industries, and how we measure the economic impact and contribution of our cultural sectors. The presentations are going to be brief, but we think and hope that you will hear some familiar themes emerging. There will be some sense, I hope, of common strengths and common challenges that we all understand and can relate to. Hopefully, you'll hear some strategies that are being applied in other sectors that might relate to yours, and hopefully you'll hear from some experts that could benefit your industry. And if nothing else, we hope you'll take away a new idea, and we'll start a bit of a discussion about finding solutions together, and we'll do that over a glass of wine at the end of the night. I'm not going to do any big speeches tonight. You'll all be pleased to hear. A few things, though, in terms of logistics. This is what you need to know. The presentations will be short. We've allowed our presenters only 5 minutes each. So they're going to hit the highlights, and as I say, hope to start a conversation and encourage you to go look for the full report afterwards. We have allowed a little bit of time for questions and answers at the end of each presentation, but by a little bit, I mean just sort of 2 minutes, so you may have to save some of your questions for the later part. We are videotaping the presentations this evening, and we'll be putting them on YouTube. So if you miss something, you'll have a chance to see it again. But it also means that we will be using microphones during the Q&A portion to make sure that we're picking up the audience audio. So if you've got a question, just put up your hand and let us know, and wait for a microphone to make its way to you. There is, I was supposed to press the button. That's me. Okay, that's what you need to know. There is Wi-Fi access available in the library, and you will find the access code here, but it's also printed in your program. And of course, tweets are always welcome, and the hashtag is OMDC Research. And with that, we're going to get right into business with our first presentation. So in February of this year, just last month, 2 months ago now, I guess, the Canadian Media Production Association, the CMPA, released its report called Discoverability: Strategies for Canadian Content Producers in a Global Online Marketplace. I think that title is fairly self-explanatory, so I don't think I need to say much more to introduce it to you, except perhaps that we had lined up Reynolds Maston to come and do this presentation for you, and he got pulled away on another urgent matter. For those of you who were there last year, you will remember we were waiting for Reynolds to fly in, and so I don't know that we're going to invite him again. But anyway, nonetheless, our very own Lisa Freeman, our Manager of Research and Strategic Planning at OMDC, has agreed to step in and fill his shoes, so I'm going to invite Lisa to come up and tell you about the CMPA study.
This is a report that was funded by OMDC and by the National Film Board. And as Karen mentioned, it launched at the end of February. It was authored by Catherine Tate of Duopoly. And as the title of the report suggests, the study looks at the challenge of reaching an audience in what is now a vast online global marketplace. There are 72 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute. and there are 746 new apps on Apple's App Store every day. So it took a lot of research to pull together some tips, and we'll get into that. In addition to some secondary research on the subject, this study included a survey and a series of interviews with two groups of experts on the subject. On the first hand, content creators, and on the other hand, digital buyers, distributors, and advisors. So this slide really sets out the three key questions that this study sought to answer. They're pretty self-explanatory. Which social networking platforms control navigation, and how do they promote your content? What are the social media and other online tools that are available to producers? And are there examples in the North American marketplace that we can look to that might be replicable? Also, in answering the questions, it was always important to consider whether the answers to the questions might vary depending on the type of content. So sometimes something works for apps and something else for a web series, for instance. This first slide looks at an answer to the second question about the toolkit. So here's how respondents ranked various marketing techniques in importance. You'll see, obviously, social media has become the most important marketing technique for discoverability. It's an old-fashioned idea. The best way to find out about something new is to hear about it from a friend you trust. Search is the second, and just for clarity, that's about related optimization, search and related optimization techniques, how you get your web page or your website to be more visible in the unpaid or organic world of search results. You'll see traditional media marketing is way down there near the bottom of the list, but still there. Breaking down the social media category a little bit further in response to that first research question, respondents point to Facebook as the most important. There are 16 million monthly unique visitors in Canada to Facebook. It's followed by Twitter and then YouTube. And at the top, you'll see one of the great sound bites that are found throughout the report from some of the interviewees. This one talking about how some of the different social media platforms work differently. The answers to the third research question really form the bulk of the report, which is examples of success. There are 6 case studies of projects in this report. Each of the projects targets a different audience, has a different budget, different market clout, so everything from a major studio film to a Facebook game. And the learning from those case studies is also distilled in a very handy discoverability checklist that provides a good 10-point guide to improving discoverability. The study as a whole points to some patterns developing. And my sense is that the most important one really is that marketing now begins before the project launches and doesn't end when production ends. So that has implications for the role of the producer. Their work is much more front-end loaded than it has been traditionally. And also as a result, the line between creative and marketing is really starting to blur. There's clearly a need to focus on communicating early with your audience, communicating often, communicating authentically. And you're trying to create evangelical and influential superfans who are going to go out there and they're really the new critics. And there's a little bit of good news for indies as well. The consensus seems to be that the most valuable tool is organic rather than paid promotion. So again, going back to those search engine optimizations, blogging, grassroots stunts, those sorts of things. Just quickly, the study does also look at how does a producer know when their project has achieved success in this new world. So respondents were asked to identify what the tipping point was really that signaled online success, and that's what you see here. I find it personally comforting to know that it's still essential to be innovative and to create content that resonates. Some familiar themes. If that works for you, Peter. At any rate, OMDC was very pleased to be part of this study. It's a particularly timely study and one that provides insight on a new way of thinking about content creation and value creation in ways that span any sector really that's creating online digital content. So I also want to point out quickly that in addition to the report itself, how am I doing for time, Karen?
You can't be over.
The project included the development of something called digitaleeventsadvisor.com, which, as the name suggests, is sort of like a TripAdvisor, but it's to help producers to find which digital content conferences and trade shows are the valuable ones to attend. So please visit that website and participate in that online resource. And I'll also let you know that a copy of this report, because this is the study that we're presenting tonight that has launched already, it's available on OMDC's website as well as CMPA's website. So Raina will tell you more about where to find that on our site at the close of tonight. So I'm happy to field any questions. Can't promise that I'll be able to answer, but will do my best. Anyone?
How much did it cost you?
$1 million! No.
That's on YouTube.
The question was, how much did the study cost? If anyone's curious about research grants from the OMDC, our guidelines are outside on the registration table, and I would encourage you to pick up the phone and contact our research consultants to find out more about that process and how that works.
Very discreet.
Thank you. All right. I guess I will hand the clicker back to Karen.
No, right here. I don't know if this is...
Is that for me? Richard taught me how to press the buttons before the presentation began, and I've already screwed it up. But so far, so good. Thank you, Lisa. And now from Lisa to Lisa. The Executive Director of the Documentary Organization of Canada is here with us tonight, Lisa Fitzgibbons. Doc, you will probably know, has been very steady and prolific in terms of studying that industry and what the challenges and opportunities are that lie ahead. They have got a series of reports called Getting Real that have been coming out for many years now, and OMDC has been privileged to be involved in many of them. They're just about to release their latest report called Getting Real 5, which is, of course, the latest analysis of the changes, the challenges, and I think probably most importantly, the strategies to address those things in Canada's documentary industry. So over to Lisa.
Thank you, Karen. All right, I have the clicker. Getting Real 5, I guess I'm supposed to use it. Getting Real 5 is an economic profile of the Canadian documentary industry. We'd like to thank our partners, and we'd like to acknowledge Nordicity and Subi Consultants who worked with us on this study. The research, tonight I'll deal with the scope of the research, some key findings, and believe you me, this report has so many findings, we'd be here until tomorrow, so I've only included a few. But I really wanted to spend my few minutes on some highlights of this case studies that we've done, to finish off with some methodological considerations. So Getting Real has been tracking data since 1998 and is a longitudinal overview of the Canadian documentary industry. This edition looks at data for 2010 and 11. It's a national study and looks at documentary production in both linguistic markets. It's very detailed. We take into account production done by the National Film Board, in-house broadcaster production, and even we track down, it's quite easy actually, money granted by the Canada Council for the Arts for documentary filmmakers. What's new in this edition? Well, we continue to work with a refined methodology to give a more accurate reflection of documentary production as we try to weed out reality programming. However, we continue to encounter methodological issues, and I can get into those at the end. In this edition, what's different is that we've included case studies looking at the ways that documentary filmmakers repurpose their content for different markets. Just a few top-line statistics. Sadly, I have to say that overall, this report is not a good news report for documentary. At $390 million, the production volume of Canadian documentaries in 2010 and 11 was at its lowest level in 8 years, hitting all segments in both linguistic markets. In total, documentary production volume has shrunk by more than $100 million since 2008, and Ontario experienced the most dramatic decline in terms of actual production volume, losing $64 million by 2010 and 11. Not surprisingly, given the decrease in documentary production volume, there is a corresponding drop in the number of full-time equivalent jobs. Since 2008, there has been a loss of almost 4,000 jobs. Overall, the Canadian documentary sector continues to contribute significantly to GDP to the tune of $625 million. A few stats. So in the English language market, 98% of documentary production is produced for television. In the French market, it's 87%. Of that production, 72% is attributable to documentary series, irrespective of linguistic market. It's an understatement to say that TV drives documentary production in Canada. It's also true to say that in this edition, the state of feature documentary is alarming, with a drop in production volume going from $20 million to $4 million. It should be noted that feature documentaries are dependent on broadcaster licenses to assemble their financing plan. So I did want to bring some good news, and those are with the case studies. Documentaries, as you know, are well suited to what's called the long-tail distribution. With this edition, we wanted to demonstrate the breadth of the markets that documentaries reach over time, while underscoring the difficulties faced by documentary producers in reaching those markets. As we've seen, because most of documentary production is destined for television, the broadcast license is critical to the financing plan. So if there's no broadcast license, there's no exploitation of secondary or tertiary products, because there isn't a first one. The broadcast license is also critical in leveraging other tools such as tax credits or in accessing other private and public funding sources. The films that we chose to study included the 4 that you see. I just want to highlight the case study for The Corporation. Based on the book, The Corporation, The Pathological Pursuit of Profit and Power, The Corporation was originally a 3 one-hour series launched in 2003. So 10 years later, this film's still going strong. It went on to become 5 educational modules designed for MBA courses, a short film, The Corporation in the Grade 8 Classroom, a festival film, a theatrical film, 23 chapters on YouTube, a film available for download on iTunes, Hulu, Amazon, and I'm sure others, and mostly pirated. It is the highest grossest Canadian documentary of all times, with an estimated gross of $1.9 million in Canadian theatrical sales only. It continues to repurpose its content 10 years after being launched, especially for the educational market, and is in the process of developing a 3-part series for high schools. Just a brief note on Too Much. Too Much was originally conceived as a 3-part series for Bravo and went on to sign a theatrical deal with Cineplex Odeon as part of their special screening events, the same ones that bring you the opera, and was shown on 60 screens across the country. The producers are currently repurposing the property for a web series. What we were trying to demonstrate with these case studies is how the featured documentary market, as well as the non-theatrical and educational markets, are currently tethered to the Canadian broadcast system, where documentary star is rapidly fading. A final note. It was rather ironic that when we finished the case studies, we realized that 3 out of the 4 films could probably not get made today. The Corporation benefited from the support of the Canadian Independent Film and Video Fund, which no longer exists. Bravo no longer commissions documentaries such as Too Much, and Inside Disaster was one of the last projects that benefited from a partnership with CIDA. Finally, a few methodological issues. That's a really tough word, methodology. It's still very difficult to find out what is really going on in the market. Obviously, our data comes from public sources, CRTC, CAFCO, and so on. There are some definitely self-financed documentaries out there, but how do we track that data? So that's a big question for us. There's also conflicting definitions of what constitutes a documentary, so we continue to battle that. And that will be an ongoing battle. But our biggest battle right now is definitely how the financing system for documentaries is dictated by television production. Our research will be published at the end of May. Questions? Yes, Peter.
Lisa, is crowdfunding a potential source that's particularly applicable to documentary? What do you think of it?
The question is crowdfunding a particularly applicable funding source for documentary, and what do I think of it? Crowdfunding does work for documentary. A lot of people are turning to crowdfunding. It should be called time funding. Producers are finding, and it's quite interesting to see the CNPA's report because, you know, get out there before you start the project. That's true. There's a film that's going to be shown at Hot Docs. My memory's failing me. Oh my gosh. No, about animals. Ghost Inside the Machine. Ha, thank you. And so Ghost Inside the Machine is a documentary about how animals are used in our system, research system, and so on. But they started before they shot. They started their social media campaign before they shot. And obviously, crowdfunding campaigns will be successful if you have a community that already exists. Will it be the panacea that people think it is? No. Will it be able to replace the sum that broadcasting licenses would contribute to a budget? No. So I think it's something that we're all trying to figure out. I think it is particularly well suited to documentary because documentaries, by virtue of their subject matter, have niche audiences. Will the general public tire of crowdfunding? Perhaps. Will filmmakers be able to leverage the crowdfunding success from one campaign to another film remains to be seen. And what this study has shown is that as you brand yourself, the corporation has become a brand. And so that's an interesting thing, and that you can use successfully in a crowdfunding environment. So if you brand your film, or if your production company gets branded, Cherchez le Courant, for example, actually gives you a sense of a production company that has framed itself as being driven by environmental and socially engaged projects. So they are branded as such, and they're finding that their audiences now are looking for their projects because they know what kinds of projects they produce. So that's interesting for crowdfunding. Yes?
One question.
Oh.
Hi. Just a question on methodology. In defining what a documentary was, were you using the CRTC definition of a long-form documentary?
Yes, we did.
Including documentaries that are shorter.
So the question for everyone was, did we which definition did we use for documentary? And yes, we apply the filtering process. We have a filtering process that uses the CRTC's long-form definition of documentary, which, just so you know, long-form is longer than 22 minutes.
Hi, Lisa. Peter Miller from Interactive Ontario. Just following up on Peter Lyman's question on crowdfunding. A question and B, a comment. Did you put a submission in to the OSC on securities-based crowdfunding? And B, a comment. Having now engaged with some of the staff at OSC, what we found at Interactive Ontario is that they have no concept of how significant this could be for creative industries. And I would just observe to everybody from other sectors in this room that I think we have an opportunity to really push this because they don't understand the significance to us. They still think it's about high-tech and tangible technological goods. They don't understand the potential value to creative industries and intellectual property. And I would agree with you that no one knows exactly how much the benefit would be, but it would seem, certainly to us, that taking full advantage and making sure Ontario leads the way with a good securities-based exemption would make sense. So that's my observation, but my comment is what your view is on that and whether you had a chance to put an intervention in.
I was all ready to put in an intervention until I realized that it was about equity investing. And in this case, what we're seeing with crowdfunding is that producers are not approaching it from an equity perspective. So, sure, but from our perspective, people are still first of all, it's being done, and it's being done from a perspective of either a contribution, which we actually assess as being a sponsorship. We equate what's happening in the crowdfunding field right now as sponsorship. I can see you shaking your head.
Yeah, just as a point of information, the current environment does not allow securities-based crowdfunding. So you can't do equity, you can't do debt. That's why it doesn't exist.
But
that's
they
why
want to look into it for equity purposes.
That's what OSC is reviewing,
yes.
is whether it should give an exemption to traditional securities regulation to allow securities-based crowdfunding. And so obviously, because it hasn't happened yet, no one knows fully what the implications of that may be.
And it would apply for publicly traded companies.
No.
That's how it was explained to me.
And then I'm afraid, I'm happy to educate you offline,
sure.
but just so you know, no, that's what this exemption is about. This exemption is about a simple exemption to allow creative industries and other companies to raise capital through crowdfunding without the normal prospectus requirement.
Okay.
That's what that's about.
All right. On that great note, I think we have an ongoing conversation. Thank you.
But to be fair to Lisa, that's not what the study was about. So, so I'm going to keep us moving along, which is to, where's my little clicker? There you go. See, look at that. To introduce you to Music Ontario, and under the umbrella of CIMA, the Canadian Independent Music Association, Music Ontario is currently working on a project to assess the needs and the gaps in Ontario's music markets, with a view to designing and delivering responsive programs and services. The report itself won't actually be out until I think much later this year, but we've got Scott Hansberger here, who is the Executive Director at Music Ontario, to tell you a little bit about how they are approaching this sort of grassroots community-based study. Over to Scott.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, everybody. Thank you to the OMDC for having me. Like Karen said, we are just a little bit quick background about who we are. So we are a newly formed division of CIMA, the Canadian Independent Music Association. So we're new as an organization as well. We are less than 6 months old, and we're a nonprofit member-based division of CIMA, and our mandate is to provide professional development, education, information, resources, and support to the music industry in Ontario. We are still in our pre-launch phase, so we should be fully launching in the next few months. But we will, as Karen said, we're going to be taking a grassroots approach to providing support and resources for artists as well as industry across Ontario, including especially emerging industries that we're training the next generation. So a little bit about our project. Our project is called the Community Development Research Project, or the CDRP, and it will identify the needs and gaps in terms of education and infrastructure within the music industry of Ontario on a community-by-community basis. So what I mean by that is, in order for us to really deliver effective programming, we recognize that we need to ask the industry and, in fact, the communities across Ontario what it is that they need, who are you, what do you need, and how can we help? Because the needs of the communities across Ontario will be very different. The needs in Guelph will be very different from the needs in Kingston or Kitchener and those sorts of things. And the makeup of those communities will be very different too. So, of course, the first step is to obviously ask those communities what it is that you need, how can we help. And just a quick point that will actually help us as an organization grow, so that we can deliver effective programming on a community basis. So really our goal is to understand the needs of each of the identified communities in order to deliver the most impactful programming for the future. So essentially 3 broad questions. Who are you, what do you need, and how can we help led us to develop this research project. And we really broke it down. So the who are you is really the quantitative data. Who are the artists? Who are the managers? Who are the labels? Who are the publishers? Who are the presenters? Who are the promoters on a market by market basis? The what do you need is really best defined as the qualitative sentiment within each community. So what does the community say that they need? What does London think that they need in order to help their community grow? What does Guelph need? Does Kingston need more labels? Does Kitchener need more managers, et cetera, et cetera? Because the needs will be different again, as I mentioned. And then the how can we help part is really the feedback and suggestions on future programming for Music Ontario. For us to really be able to deliver impactful programming, we need to first ask and then deliver. So essentially what we're asking to do is for markets across Ontario to give us our marching orders. Our approach to collecting this, so obviously the first is the quantitative data through surveys and working with other industry partners. So it's essentially just comparing the data, or once we've collected the data, comparing it on a market-by-market basis to determine the quote-unquote health of each community. So we can determine what are the programs that we need to deliver on a specific basis in each community. Our method for the qualitative sentiment is to ask similar questions, but more from an engaging point of view. So, what are the current challenges you face in your community? What are areas of the industry do you wish you knew more about? So we can deliver effective professional development activities. And what types of creative and professional opportunities do you feel Music Ontario could help provide to support your career? So for artists and industry in each community, allowing us to deliver impactful programming. So our main activities are going to be really twofold. One is an online survey for artists and industry, collecting the data, finding out who are the players in each of the communities. But the other element is we're going to be doing 13 outreach events. So really going out to each of these communities, holding public events, saying who are you, what do you need, how can we help? Our partners are the OMDC, of course. We are also partnering with Ryerson University to provide faculty and student research support, and as well as the industry. So we're going to be connecting with industry people in various communities to really just get their local communities engaged as much as possible. Because obviously the emphasis is to get as many people in each of these communities engaged so we can get the best data. So our intended results are essentially, what I've gone over is collect qualitative and quantitative data at the community level in markets across Ontario, gain insight into the needs and gaps and growth potential of each community, use data and insight to ensure Music Ontario's programming and initiatives are relevant and maximum growth potential is met, and identify ambassadors in each region to help delivery of future programming and really just keeping the conversation and keeping the delivery going so that we can make sure that we're affecting real change. And overall, we just need to get a snapshot of the industry on a market-by-market basis so that Music Ontario can grow and effectively deliver programming. So as Karen said, we're actually at the very beginning of our study. In fact, we've just hired our first person. We're about to connect with Ryerson to hire our second person. So we have no data yet, but this is our approach, and I welcome any questions. Thanks. Thank you. Yes, Rita.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, how are you, Rita?
I'm really good. How are you?
Good to see you.
Congratulations on getting this off the ground.
Thank you.
Really,
Thank
great
you very
work.
much. Thank you.
I was just wondering, what was your criteria for choosing the cities or communities that you are reviewing in the study?
So, and just to clarify, so the quantitative data will be Ontario-wide. So it's not that we are actually surveying all of Ontario. So there are no city limitations in terms of that side. On the qualitative side, we had to. I mean, obviously, there are a number of markets in Ontario, and we really just looked at population as well as existing industry and infrastructure. Obviously, you sort of have to cut it off somewhere. So that was how it was determined. Yeah, essentially.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, another question. Sorry, I think we need to wait for a microphone. 1 second. Yeah, of course. It's going on YouTube. We got to hear.
Hi, Scott. Tony Tobias. How are you treating First Nations?
I would
Are you
say,
treating them as because of the diversity, are you treating them as a separate community? Are you treating them integrated because they're often left out of most of the things that we do?
Sure. I would say that from a strategic standpoint, that we're not treating them any differently. We're looking at it geographically. Yeah.
I would really suggest that you kind of think about that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
Just
Happy
a
to have
suggestion.
conversations. Sure.
Yeah.
And I should also point out that there is a list of cities that I put up there that we're going to be visiting. You may have noticed that there's a gap in terms of the northern part of Ontario. The reason for that is there actually is a music industry association that represents and serves the northern part of Ontario. So we will be working in conjunction with Music and Film in Motion up north to collect as much data as we can. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, so next up, and we are on time. So far, so good. Next up is Gary Garland from Magazines Canada. And I'm not entirely sure what to say about this. So Magazines Canada is probably one of the best organizations in terms of really having a good handle on the industry that they serve and having a good sense of having an ability from OMDC's perspective to be able to measure and report on the results from that sector. And I think it's probably fair to say they're quite prolific in terms of the amount of research and analysis that comes out of that organization regularly. So we invited Gary to come this evening and tell you a little bit about some of their most recent stats and facts. And I was somehow under the impression he was going to talk about business-to-business type publications. And luckily, I asked him that question before we came in, and he said, oh, no, it's mostly business to consumer. So I'm going to ignore all the notes that I wrote down and let Gary come up and tell you what it is he wants to tell you about the magazine industry in this country.
Thank you, Karen. Hi, everybody. I've actually come to kill you with data. No great surprise there if anybody's ever seen me talk before. So, excuse me. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the projects that Magazines Canada has in the pipeline, our research directions. But before I go any further, I have to thank the great people and the programs at OMDC for all of the great work that you do in supporting all the many things that we do. And truly you understand our challenges and our needs, and I think that really is what makes the relationship special. And I think today's event, in fact, is very much testament to the fact that they get it. The fact that research into our individual industries is key to success. And because, you know, if you don't know where the heck you are, it's really hard to know where the heck you want to get to. So thanks to OMDC for all its great support. So let's talk a little bit about examples of OMDC programs that we have in the pipeline. First up is the Magazines Canada Connections Audit Initiative. It's focused on understanding... No, it's the right sector. It's focused on understanding magazine media's role and influence throughout the consumer's path to purchase, from consumer awareness right through to purchase intent. And this is enormously important information for our sector to demonstrate how and why each magazine platform works the way it does work. Early learning is telling us that print magazines perform well on key consumer experience needs, some of which you see here, reaffirming the many reasons for why magazines add value to both advertisers and to readers alike. And in fact, I just came back today from our very first look at the full deck of data, and I got to tell you, it is just simply awesome. So we're going to be knocking on every door and talking to anybody who will listen to us about all the great data that's coming out of this project. Secondly, the Business Media Summit White Paper. It serves to lay out emerging pressures and opportunities related to editorial, sales, circulation, and publishing strategies. And it goes on to look at the resulting staffing priorities that come from that, as well as revenue diversification strategies to tap into new and varied revenue streams. Magazines Canada is also renovating its website to provide better and faster industry access to hugely expanded library files, literally thousands of files across different research topics that will be made available to the industry through this project. So another important project for us. As for other industry research programs, the shift to digital ushers in the need for new metrics to measure and track success. As a result, the Print Measurement Bureau continues its partnership with ComScore to complement traditional magazine readership measures with a broad array of digital metrics, all in one fused database. And circulation auditors now offer the capability to measure a brand circulation footprint by capturing print and digital touch points across all platforms separately and in total on one report. So each of these programs help us better understand ourselves and our opportunities so that we can make more informed decisions based on facts. It's all about an overriding need to stay aligned with the enormous change in the market and to increase industry capacity so that we can evolve and grow. And never before has this need been more important to us. The magazine industry is rapidly reinventing itself, transitioning from magazine publishing companies to magazine media companies. And as a result, the industry now sees itself as a branded Canadian content creator feeding multiple platforms and devices. The result, I'm not done yet. I told you I'm here to kill you with research. So, the result is an industry that's firmly embracing the disruptive forces of change while working hard to maintain the mothership. And of course, to us, that's print as we look into all the other opportunities presenting themselves. And the news is good. It's very good. It's working. And here's what the research tells us, in fact, that we're still launching new titles. There are more Canadian consumer titles available today than at any other time in the history of the world, and 75% of them are available here in Ontario. Circulation, which was managed down during the recession as publishers took costs out of their businesses, is rebounding. In fact, we're now measuring over 500 million copies annually across Canada. Readership, it's as solid gets. Readers still love magazines, print magazines. Time spent reading, their favorite titles, remain stable. And young Canadians aged 12 to 34, the most technologically savvy generations ever, remain the most heavily penetrated magazine demographic. Print magazines are still preferred to digital by a long margin, with only 9% claiming to be digital-only magazine readers. And the reasons why print is still preferred remains the same as it has since Gutenberg. It's about portability, it's the tactile nature of print, it's about their ease to browse through and to read, and let's not forget, of course, the fabulous content that they produce. But digital magazines have their own place too. 85% of those who read digital magazines on a device like it a lot. And the reasons here are clear as well. It's their access to video, it's the extra photos, and all the other stuff that you just simply cannot put into a paper magazine. So 58% say that they are reading more digital content than they ever thought they would. 33% say that they're spending more money on buying things to read, and 28% say that they're actually reading more in print since they started to read digitally. So it's really a win-win story all around. So what all of this stuff means at the end of the day is that magazine media is well positioned for the future. Magazine content is highly engaging. It's wanted. I mean, people spend their hard-earned money on them. They spend their valuable time reading them. And it's embraced by tens of millions of readers across Canada. Slightly creepy, actually, don't you think? Just saying. So we have tens of millions of readers across Canada, and now with all the digital opportunities, our ability to export around the world has increased as well. So, with OMDC strategic support programs, magazine media is responding with sustainable jobs, with economic ripple effects. Ontario's magazine sector is Ontario's largest cultural medium at $1.5 billion annually, with Ontario government support totaling just 1/3 of 1% of our annual industry value. And one final point, because I know she's going to give me the hook any second, is please join us at Magnet. Magnet is Canada's magazine conference. It's in June. It's here in Toronto. It's the largest gathering of media in Canada, and it's the largest magazine conference in the world.
It's fabulous.
Pardon me?
It's fabulous.
It is fabulous. I'm glad you agree. This year our theme is going to be Connecting Canada, so if you can make it, please do. We'd love to see you. So once again, thank you to OMDC and of course to Minister Chan for his unfailing support of OMDC's strategic objectives. Thank you all for listening. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to ignore them.
Am I allowed to ask a question? I work at OMDC.
Yes, you may.
I would like to find out when Lisa from Doc and Gary from Magazines are going to talk about why there's such a demand for video as a feature of digital magazines and how we can get these documentary producers producing videos for magazine content.
We've actually talked about that. That's a hell of an idea. Yeah. Yeah, Magnet. Let's do it all there.
Let's fund the study.
In fact, we have the prospectus here if you'd like to just sign off now. Yes?
Your stats on 28% of reading more, 33% spending more money on things to read. Is that specific to the magazine industry? Or?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I've got a question. For your,
yes, sir.
Oh, sorry.
For your upcoming Magnet, is the guest speaker, what I want to know, is there really a magazine called Garden and Gun?
In the United States, yes.
Cool.
Yes. Can't imagine it in Canada, but there.
I seriously thought you were kidding. I did.
No. No, I kid you not. There's a place in
I
Lake
can't wait
Placid.
to hear what she has to say.
There is a place in Lake Placid where they have a guns and gift store. So, yeah, this seems to fit the genre. Thank you very much.
Didn't know magazines could be so much fun, did you? I can certainly see the cross-sector potential emerging here, so we're going to have a great conversation when we're finished with our presentations. The projects that you've heard about so far this evening are actually projects that are industry-led with some sort of funding or support from OMDC. But from time to time, we actually commission our own research, and the next project is one such study on the economic impact of Ontario's book publishing industry. The study is being led in partnership by Nordicity and Castledale, and we're pleased to have Julie Whalen here from Nordicity to tell us a little more about that report, which I think is coming very soon, right? All right, over to Julie.
Okay, great. Clicker. Thanks for having me. So the OMDC, as Karen mentioned, engaged Nordicity and Castledale to measure the economic impact of Ontario's book publishers, as well to better understand the impact of digitization on the sector. The last time the sector's economic impact was measured was actually in 2004, and much has changed since then, as I'm sure you know. Okay, wait. Oh, I should have been on this one already. Okay. So most of the data we'll see today is derived from a survey conducted in the summer of 2012 and reflects the fiscal year ending in 2011. It was targeted at Ontario-based Canadian-owned book publishers, and some 38 book publishers responded to the survey. We also collected data about Harlequin from its parent company Torstar's 2011 annual report. Now, because the survey will only ever capture a portion of the industry, we had to gross up the survey results to reflect the industry as a whole. And to do so, we used data kindly provided by BookNet, which, as you know, tracks about 75% of book sales in Canada. So when we added Harlequin's data to the survey results, we estimate that our sort of resulting data represents about 94% of book sales in Canada by Canadian-owned, Ontario-based book publishers. At the moment, Nordicity is currently working with raw data from the 2004 report on Ontario book publishing in order to sort of reframe the data using our impact methodology. And our intent is that this work will help us be able to draw certain comparisons in the final report, which, as Karen mentioned, will be available next month. Okay. So, just quickly, since 2004, I think much has changed, but three sort of key dynamics which we might observe have really transformed the book publishing industry. Industry consolidation, and this is not unique to Ontario or to Canada, but certainly has occurred with, say, for example, M&S to Random House, readers' growing appetite for ebooks, and struggles for bricks and mortar bookshops against the likes of Amazon. Okay, so amid this challenging environment, in 2011, Ontario book publishers earned $319 million. And of this sort of total revenue, retail sales were the primary source of earnings for publishers at 55%. Institutional sales, and by that we mean sort of educational or library sales, were also important, with 17% of total revenue in 2011. Okay. So here, this chart shows sources of revenue by physical versus digital sales channels. And we can see again that in 2011, print books still dominated the vast majority of the revenue picture with 88.5%, and digital sales coming in at more like 3.6%. Other, in this case, is neither physical nor digital, which could be rights or other things. In 2011, book publishers spent $263.7 million. And I'm sorry for this small font, which I'm not sure if you can read, but if you could, you would see that wages, compensation, and benefits accounted for 28% of publisher spending in 2011, followed by printing and production costs with 19% of publisher spending. Now, we know it can be incredibly difficult to sort of truly isolate the unique or incremental costs of digital production over print. But the pink arrows indicate just some of the spending categories which likely have sort of experienced an impact in terms of having to develop a digital edition. So for example, design, editing, and layout at 8% in 2011, professional services at 7%, and of course digital conversion at 1% of 2011 spending, we could say is entirely digital. Incredible. So on to the impacts. In 2011, Ontario book publishers created 1,980 jobs in Ontario, $19.3 million in household income for Ontario residents, and $159.8 million in GDP for the Ontario economy. So not too bad. To look at this another way, we could say that for every $10 million of revenue in the Ontario book publishing industry, just over 62 jobs were created, $2 million in household income, or $5 million in GDP for the Ontario economy was created, or $0.7 million in provincial and local tax revenue generated for the Ontario government. And we just wanted to give one little glimpse of some of the digital insights, and that's that survey responses allowed us to determine the average revenue per sale in print and digital, and the average profit margin per sale, and finally what we see here, which is the average profit per sale. So in 2011, we can see that the average profit for digital sale is actually very slightly higher in digital than it is in print. Of course, this is only one observation and it isn't yet a trend, but this indicator and that whole kind of cluster of indicators will be really important to track going forward so we can understand more about how the industry is faring in an increasingly digital world. That's it. Any questions? I think when you go last, there aren't always that many questions. Okay.
I'm a tiny bit alarmed that growth in sales numbers means still under $3 per sale. But anyway, it's going in the right direction, so that's a good story, I guess. So obviously you've had a good sense from the presentations this evening that OMDC really does understand the importance of research to your industry, your building of your industry strategies. We want to be there to help you and support as you're making your arguments to your funders, to your advertisers, and building your business strategies. And just before we wrap up, or at least as the last, I guess, of our formal presentations, I'd like to invite Raina Wells, who you will all know as our Director of Business Affairs and Research, just to come up quickly and give you a bit of a sense about OMDC's ongoing research programs and services, tell you a bit about our newly refreshed website, and where you can find all of the studies that you've heard about tonight, as well as a ton of other good stuff. So I don't know where Raina is. Is she? Oh, there she is. Okay, Raina, ladies. Oh, and I should also say before she takes the mic away from me, because then I'm gone. I get, just to say congratulations to Raina and Lisa and the whole team, because this has been clearly an event that people have appreciated and some remarkable work that's gone on in the past year. So congratulations to the team and welcome back to Sarah and Scott. I see that some of our old OMDCers are back to visit for the evening too, because they still believe in this stuff. So over to Raina.
Hello.
Last month, we refreshed the OMDC website, and I want to tell you about it. Lisa's going to help me drive because I'm very right-handed, and I couldn't figure out how to work the mouse and talk at the same time. There we go. So the new and improved website is easier to navigate, and it has some new features. I encourage you to go in and poke around if you haven't done that already. And I especially want to highlight tonight the research and industry information section of the website. Hovering over any of the sector menu options at the top will reveal what we're calling a mega menu. You can get to our online research library through the blue button on the side. We've now got 277 documents in our fully searchable online research library. If you have documents that you'd like to share with us for the library, please do send them along. We love that. And the research and industry information section on the website is tailored for each individual sector, so that when you hover over the book sector and look at the industry profiles, for example, that are listed there in the book sector, you just get the book profile. But if you go to the collaboration section of the website and looked at the industry profiles part of it there, you'd see all of them. So if you're looking for all the information for all these sectors, go to the collaboration piece of the website. There is a QR code on the back of your Research Showcase program that will take you to the Research and Information section of the OMDC website, where you'll find links to our industry profiles, our film and TV production statistics, research funded and commissioned by the OMDC, and information about the OMDC Research Grants Program. Tonight, we also gave you a handout with a list of all of the research funded and commissioned by the OMDC. There are 50 things listed on here, which I'm very proud of. And there's also a QR code on the handout that will take you directly to the website page where you can find the studies. I also wanted to tell you that our next research grant deadline is June 24th. Guidelines and application forms are on the website, and staff in the research group would be happy to speak to you about a specific proposal if you have one. Finally, the thank you section. I want to thank all of our presenters tonight, Lisa, who I've been calling Lisa for years, I'm very sorry, Scott, Gary, and Julie. Thank you for your interesting presentations. We have a little parting gift for each of you, so don't leave without it. And thanks also to Karen for being our MC. Thanks to Lisa Freeman, our manager of the group, who did a fantastic job pulling tonight together, along with so many OMDC people, George, May, and Sharon, Salam, and all of the volunteers who helped out tonight. The Research Showcase, if you'll bear with me 1 more minute, is my one chance every year to thank the research group. So as well as Lisa Freeman, thank you to Erin Smith, Jen Brown, and Kathy Palches for all your hard work every day. And there are also a whole bunch of people behind the scenes at OMDC in the IT, operations, accounting, and communications groups who work really hard every day, making things run smoothly. They never get publicly recognized, so I also want to thank them for what they do. I won't read out the names, but we'll leave them up on the screen for a couple of minutes. And thanks to all of you for coming out on a rainy night. Hope to see you at next year's showcase. And now please stay for a while, have a bite to eat, and enjoy talking to each other. Thank you.